Hi guys and welcome back to Switch Up. I've just got back from seeing the new Terminator film. Eesh. It's Ghostbusters all over again. A big thanks to all the new and existing subscribers. Remember, we give away a free game each and every month to the most active and engaged people. So we have today for you a review of Vampyr from Focus Home Interactive and developed by Nod Entertainment. What's also nice to see is that Sabre Interactive did this port for the Nintendo Switch, and they have already more than shown their pedigree with The Witcher 3. Is this Vampyr action role-playing game going to suck your blood? Ugh. Let's find out. The story starts at quite a pace as you take on the role of Jonathan Reed, who has just been bitten by a vampire. Things escalate quickly with a shocking moment in the first 5 minutes. You'll then be running through the streets of London, trying to escape those who would see you dead, and things go from bad to worse before you eventually find yourself once again carrying out the role of Doctor. Very often I find in games like this, it's the side stories and the off the beaten path adventuring that captures me the most, and it's exactly the same here. There are so many different stories here. In fact, each character that you meet in the entire world acts as a story of sorts, and the developer do an excellent job with the voice actors who are able to convey very clearly unique emotions and characters for each of these people.
What is this place?
This is Tom's bar, the Turquoise Turtle. I'm the barmaid here, Sabrina, if you want to know.
It really does feel like one of the few games I've played where your world is inhabited by individuals with their own personalities. I absolutely love the constant references to the Great War, which Jonathan was a part of, and much of the dialogue in the game deals with his internal struggles in relation to those horrific experiences he went through.
You have a keen eye. I learned to shoot during the war and have carried one ever since.
And his often controversial, pioneering methods which were developed in the carnage that was taking place. Storytelling in Vampyr is absolutely excellent. I can't say too much more without spoiling a huge amount of the content, but needless to say, this is one of the most impressive storytelling techniques I've seen in a long time, and is strongly tied to the core gameplay mechanics. In terms of the gameplay then, you control Reed from a third-person perspective. You can sprint, interact with items, and there's also combat here. As a vampire, you'll have a blood meter through which you can use your special vampiric abilities. These are far more powerful than your standard attacks, but your blood dwindles fast, and restoring it will require you to bite a person in combat. The easiest way to do this is to use your secondary weapon and stun them, where you'll briefly be shown a picture of teeth and then you can chomp down. It won't entirely kill the player, but it will give you a healthy boost of blood that you can then use for those special abilities. Combat is okay, you can lock the camera onto the nearest enemy and switch between them quite easily. You have 2 buttons to attack, your main swing which uses stamina, and that stunning attack if you're using 2 separate weapons, of which there are a range in the game, and all can be upgraded when you reach a safe house or a safe bed. There are a few ranged weapons in here as well, and several guns become available to you. These offer the same stunning abilities that offhand weapon has. The combat's okay, you have your usual array of dodging and parrying attacks, but it doesn't feel quite as tight as, say, something like the Batman Arkham series. One of the most interesting things about the game, and you're made aware of it very early on, is that you don't have to kill any of the citizens inhabiting the world. The problem is, it makes it then very difficult to level up your character, which, as mentioned, is a key component of the game. When you do reach one of those safe havens, the experience you currently have can be put into both active and passive abilities, which will greatly boost your capabilities in both combat, offensively as well as defensively. Now, I was always the guy in Fallout who searched every cupboard, looked under every pot and pan, and scavenged every last bit of loot, and for those like me, you'll be glad to hear that you can do something similar in Vampyr. Bins can be rifled through, cupboards looked in, and said pots and pans overturned to scavenge parts and knickknacks, which can then be used to upgrade weapons and gear. It's a simple system and one we've seen many times before, but it's very compelling. Outside of combat, Reed has several vampiric abilities as well. Some of these make traversal easier, such as a shadow leap of sorts, but this can only be used when there's an indicator on screen. One of the most interesting and compelling aspects of the game is how accurately it depicts a traditional view of the vampire. As Reed, you can essentially, on citizens of a similar or lower level than your character, buy and even turn them into vampires. A fantastic development choice was that of the experience you gain from doing this. If you've spent the time unlocking all of the dialogue options of the citizen, and even sometimes solving mysteries that they have, the amount of experience you'll gain from doing those vampiric activities will be much greater. But as I mentioned before, not killing the citizens will unlock access to one of 4 different endings. So there's motivation to do and there's motivation not to do, which gives the game some potential replayability. It was a really great design choice having Reed as a doctor, because that constant conflict between his Hippocratic oath and that building and growing lust for blood seeps into every conversation that you have. And when, as a player, you begin to consider the possibility of doing such things, you can't help but be torn, as Reed himself is. These decisions are given more weight by the overall district's health. You're shown the current status of it, and by going about healing people, you can then improve this, which will in turn gain you some more experience. You can also use those vampiric abilities to investigate crimes and follow clues, such as blood spatters on the floor. One slight negative I have with a game like this that allows you such freedom to roam through its 4 districts, carrying out tasks that you choose to do, and not injuring citizens if you so choose, is when they include mandatory boss battles, and they are here. They tie in with the story and they make sense, but just as we saw with a game like Deus Ex, it can be a little immersion breaking when you're allowed to avoid combat for an entire game and then forced to do just that. Overall for me though, I have really enjoyed my time with Vampyr. I'd not really heard much of the game before, and I'd go so far as to say that maybe that means it's a touch underrated. The storytelling here is very good, but it's the characterization of those you meet that is exceptional.
Apologies will not suffice. I demand reparation.
The depiction of London's good, and while I would say the combat is just okay, the leveling mechanics and vampiric abilities make for a far more enjoyable game. Gameplay scores 18 out of 20. The controls are decent, sprinting around the city feels good enough. It would have been nice if it was a bit more free-flowing, so you didn't have to use specific locations to use that spring ability. Something more along the lines of the movement in a Dishonored title would have worked much better in my opinion. That being said, the controls for the most part are okay, and they score 16 out of 20. Visually, once again, Sabre Interactive have set a high bar. This is a demanding title. There are many lighting effects and shadows, dynamic and static, taking place all the time. Yes, in docked, you have a more blurry image than you'll find on any other console, but the frame rate is quite consistent. The game runs smoothly, and many of those more advanced lighting effects have made it into the experience. And as with The Witcher in handheld, this really looks quite stunning. The visual depiction of London is excellent, and the attention to detail here is quite impressive. You really can tell that the developers took the time to not only experience modern day London, but to research its historical counterpart. Each citizen in the world goes about their tasks daily, and they feel quite alive and unique. I guess the only negative is the slight blur that we kind of expect from the Nintendo Switch now, but I still think these visuals are very impressive. Small details like letters scattered about the world not only flesh out the narrative, but their visual styling adds to the experience. In terms of the audio, the voice acting is excellent, and the side cast of voice actors do a well above average job.
Tell me, who are you?
First, tell me what you want. Then I may tell you.
The music, composed by Olivier de Rivière, lends itself to the dilapidated post-war London and has itself a grimy, often melancholic tone. For me, the visuals are very nice indeed, but I can see that they're not quite up to that of other systems. Still, I would give them 16 out of 20. I personally felt that the vocal actors did a brilliant job here, and the score that underpins the experience was very effective. Audio scores 19 out of 20. Vampyr will set you back £44.99, €49.99 or $49.99, and it launches with around about a 10% discount. You will be able to find this physically as well, which is obviously going to potentially be cheaper, but I would still say they're asking maybe a bit too much here in terms of the price. It's a very good game, don't get me wrong, but just as we saw with The Witcher, you can find this much cheaper, and to be honest, performing better on other systems, and that must be taken into account when you're looking at a Nintendo Switch game and its value. They really should have gone, in my opinion, for a £25 price point, taking it to around about $30. That would have been ideal, particularly when you can buy the PS4 game for £20 right now. In terms of the content offered, you're looking at around about 25 hours for your average player who wants to do a few side missions and things like that. But there's a decent amount of content for completionists here as well, and that may take you to over 40 hours of play. So the core game, yep, there's a lot of value there, but it just loses some points for the price tag. For me, value scores 16 out of 20.
I mean you no harm. I need help.
Science
Die,
has
you
failed us.
fucking leech! Please.
The flu epidemic has killed
I can't make
thousands
any sense of this. Shut up, beast! Who are you? What is this all about?
Vampyr represents an exciting trend on the Nintendo Switch for more demanding titles to finally arrive. It's a game that I've thoroughly enjoyed playing through, and while the combat isn't wonderful, it's the world and the characters that inhabit it and the moral decisions that you're given as a player that made it most enjoyable for me. Overall, it scores a Switch Up score of 85%. A big thanks to all of you and to our patrons. If you'd like to join them, then all the links are down below for that. And to the rest of you who leave lovely comments down below, we really appreciate it. For all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch Up. Cheers guys, see ya!